大家好，我是 Jenny， 欢迎来到沉思者 J。有没有一本书让你一翻开就停不下来？读完之后，感觉整个世界观都被颠覆掉了。对我来说，就是那本《人类大历史》，而写这本书的人叫做尤瓦尔·赫拉利，一个以色列的历史学家，却用一支笔让全世界几千万人重新审视了自己。今天我们就来聊聊这个人，他究竟是谁？他怎么看待人工智慧和我们的未来？他说的那些话为什么让那么多人觉得背脊发凉？尤瓦尔诺瓦赫拉利，1976年出生在以色列海法，从小就是个爱问问题的孩子，但不是那种死背课本的资优生，而是那种会一直追问为什么的孩子。为什么人类要有国家？为什么要有宗教？为什么我们这么在乎金钱？这些问题大人通常没办法好好回答，赫拉利就决定自己去找答案。他在耶路撒冷的希伯来大学念历史，大学念得很顺，后来又跑去英国牛津大学攻读博士，专攻的是中世纪军事史。对，没有错，他一开始研究的不是人工智慧，不是未来学，而是很硬的中世纪战争史，刀剑盔甲那种。但他的脑袋始终装不下那么小的问题，他总是把历史往更大更宏观的方向想。2002年，他回到以色列，在希伯来大学任教至今，课教得很受学生欢迎，讲课风格生动，很会说故事。他的学生后来都说，上他的课就像在看一部思想纪录片，停不下来。真正让他一夕爆红的是2011年。他用希伯来文出版了一本书，叫做《人类简史》，后来翻译成英文叫做 Sapiens， 就是智人的意思。这本书一出版就引爆了全球知识圈，以色列总统推荐了，欧巴马说这是他最喜欢的书之一，比尔盖茨反复看了好几遍，马克祖克柏直接把它列入他的年度读书计划，全球销量突破2500万册，翻译语言超过60种。一个历史系教授就这样变成了全球最知名的公共学者之一。那这本书到底在说什么？让这么多有钱有智慧的人爱不释手。赫拉利做了一件很狂的事，他把人类7万年的历史用一本书说完了，从认知革命说到农业革命，从科学革命说到现在的数位时代，而且说的让一般人都看得懂。更重要的是，他在书里提出了一个惊人的论点：人类能够统治地球，不是因为我们最强壮，也不是因为我们最聪明，而是因为我们能够相信虚构的故事。听起来很奇怪，对不对？但你想想看，一只黑猩猩愿不愿意为的是一张纸去拼命？不会，但人类会。我们把那张纸叫做钞票。一只黑猩猩愿不愿意为的是一个看不见摸不住的概念去牺牲生命？不会，但人类会。我们把那个概念叫做国家，或者宗教，或者公司。赫拉利说，这些都是人类共同相信的虚构故事。就是这种能力让我们可以组成庞大的社会，让几百万人合作共事，这是地球上任何其他动物都办不到的事。而这个能力正是人类成功的秘密，但他也提出了反面的问题。如果这些都是故事，那真相是什么？钱是真实的吗？国家是真实的吗？人权是真实的吗？这些问题一旦你开始想，就很难停下来，而且越想越毛。这就是赫拉利的厉害之处，他不给你答案，他逼你自己去想。人类大历史之后，他又继续写了2本书。第2本叫做《人类大命运》，英文叫 Homo Deus， 就是神人的意思。这次他从历史跳到了未来，他问了一个问题：人类在消灭了瘟疫、战争和饥荒之后，下一个目标是什么？他的答案让很多人看了不安。人类的下一个目标是追求永生，是追求快乐，是追求成为神。他在书中说，未来的人类可能不再像现在这样平等。因为富人可以透过科技改造自己的身体和大脑，而穷人买不起。那时候的不平等不再只是贫富差距，而是能力上的物种差距。 这个预测听起来很科幻，但你想想，现在已经有人在测试脑机界面了，已经有人在研究基因编辑了，未来真的没有那么远。第三本书叫做21世纪的21堂课，英文叫21 Lessons for the 21st Century。这本书更直接，它不讲过去，也不讲遥远的未来，就讲现在这个当下，我们面对的那些最烧脑的问题。人工智慧来了，我们怎么办？民主制度还可以信任吗？当假新闻比真相更容易传播的时候，我们该怎么思考？这些问题没有标准答案，但赫拉利逼你去正视它们。好了，我们来好好聊聊赫拉利和人工智慧，因为这是他近几年最核心的关切，也是让他引发最多争议的主题。2023年之后，人工智慧的发展速度让全世界都傻眼了。ChatGPT 出来之后，几乎每个人都在问同一个问题：这东西会抢走我的工作吗？而赫拉利的答案比大多数人想的更严峻。他说，人工智慧不只是另一个工具，它是一种完全不同性质的技术。工业革命让机器取代了人类的肌肉，但人工智慧正在取代人类的心智，包括判断，包括创意，包括决策。这是人类第一次面对一个在某些智慧层面可能超越自己的东西。他特别强调一个概念，他说，现在最危险的不是人工智慧变得太聪明，而是人工智慧开始擅长操控人心。你想想看，一个系统如果能够精准分析你的情绪、你的偏好、你的恐惧，它就能够说出最能让你点头的话，让你相信你莫想到要相信的事，让你去做你原本不打算做的事。这不是科幻小说里才有的剧情，这已经在发生了。赫拉利说，民主制度是建立在一个假设上，那就是公民有能力做出理性的选择。但如果人工智慧能够精准操控每一个公民的选择，那民主就失去了它的基础。他说，这是21世纪最大的政治威胁，不是战争，不是经济崩溃，而是人类自主思考能力的丧失。2024年，他出版了新书，书名叫做 Nexus， 中文翻译叫做连结。这本书他花了很多篇幅讨论资讯网络和权力的关系。他说，人类历史上所有的重大社会变革，都和资讯的流动方式改变有关。印刷术的发明让宗教改革成为可能，广播电视的出现改变了政治的面貌，而现在人工智慧改变的速度比之前任何技术都快得多。我们有没有足够的时间和智慧来回应？他对此表示非常深刻的忧虑。在 Nexus 里面，他还提出了一个很有意思的区分。他说，人类历史上的资讯网络通常都会犯错，因为人类会犯错，但这些错误是可以被纠正的，因为网络里的成员有能力自我反省和修正。但人工智慧建立的资讯网络不一样，它可能非常高效，非常准确，但它没有自我修正的伦理机制。它优化的是它被训练的目标，而不是人类的真正福祉。这个区别看似微小，但长期下去可能造成巨大的分歧。我们再来聊聊赫拉利怎么看自由意志这个问题。他从第一本书就开始谈，而且越谈越深，越谈越让人坐立难安。他的立场非常清楚，他不相信人类有自由意志。听起来很冲，对不对？但听他解释完，你可能会觉得有点道理。他说，当你做一个决定的时候，你以为是你在做选择，但其实是你的神经元在放电。这些神经元的状态是由你的基因、你的成长环境、你的过去经历所决定的，而这些都不是你自己选的。所以你的所谓自由选择，其实是一连串因果链的结果，你只是感觉自己在选择。更让他忧虑的是，如果人工智慧能够完美地分析一个人的神经活动模式，它就能够在你自己意识到之前，已经知道你接下来会做什么决定。它甚至可以在你做决定之前就去影响那个决定的方向。那到底是谁在做决定？是你，还是那个系统？这个问题没有轻松的答案。有些人批评赫拉利说他太悲观了， 说他的预言是吓人的，不是真正的学术分析。这个批评也有他的道理。赫拉利确实很擅长用戏剧性的语言来描述问题，这让他的书好看，但也可能让读者过度焦虑。但赫拉利自己有回应过这个批评，他说他不是在预言，他是在提问。他说一个好的历史学家不是要告诉你未来会怎样，而是要帮你看清楚现在的选择会通往哪些可能的未来，而我们现在的选择会大大影响人工智慧发展的方向。现在不思考清楚，以后就没有机会了。除了学术工作，赫拉利在个人生活上也有很多让人好奇的地方。她是一个公开的同志，和她的丈夫伊兹克利弗曼在一起已经很多年了。克利弗曼同时也是她的事业伙伴，很多采访行程和书籍规划都一起合作。她长期修习内观冥想，也就是 Vipassana， 这是一种南传佛教的静心方法。每年她都会花长达60天的时间静默静心。对一个世界级的公共学者来说，这是非常罕见的事。但他说这个练习对他的思考和写作至关重要，它让他有办法脱离外部世界的喧嚣，真正去观察自己的心智是怎么运作的。他说他对自由意志的怀疑，有一部分就是来自冥想实践中的亲身观察。当你静静地坐住观察自己的念头，你会发现念头是自己跑出来的，你没有办法命令自己产生哪个念头，念头升起了，你只是观察到了它。这个体验让他对自我的概念有了很不一样的理解。赫拉利也是一个严格的素食者，他非常关注动物福利议题。他在《人类大历史》里有一段写工厂化畜牧的文字，读过的人都说那段读完之后很难再若无其事地吃肉。他认为人类对待动物的方式是文明史上最大但最少被讨论的道德问题之一。赫拉利现在还是持续在写作和演讲，他在全球各地的大学、企业、政府机构演讲，跟各国领导人对话，跟科技公司的创办人辩论。他说他最担心的事情之一是现在掌握人工智慧发展方向的那些人，他们的动机主要是商业利益，而不是全人类的福祉，而政府的监管速度远远跟不上技术发展的速度，这个落差非常危险。他提倡全球性的人工智慧监管合作。他说人工智慧就像核武一样，不是一个国家可以自己搞定的问题，需要全球的合作和共识。但现在各国之间的竞争逻辑让这种合作非常困难，这是他最深的忧虑之一。最后，我想分享一个赫拉利说过的很打动我的想法。他说在这个资讯爆炸的时代，最重要的能力不是获取资讯，而是学会忽略资讯，知道哪些事情不重要，才有精力去关注真正重要的事情。这在今天的社群媒体时代听起来特别有共鸣。每天那么多新闻，那么多通知，那么多演算法推送给你的内容，你有没有能力停下来问自己，这个对我真的重要吗？还是我只是被推着看了它？赫拉利这个人让我喜欢的地方就在这里，他不给你轻松的答案，他给你更难的问题，但正是这些难问题，才让我们有机会活得更清醒一点。从海法的好奇小孩，到牛津的中世纪战争史学者，到让全球2500万人重新看待人类的作家，再到今天站在人工智慧时代最前线发出警告的思想家，尤瓦尔·赫拉利的故事告诉我们一件事：最重要的能力不是记住答案，而是一直保持好奇，一直敢于问那些让人不舒服的问题。谢谢你今天陪我一起认识这位了不起的大师。如果你喜欢今天的内容，记得订阅我们的频道。我们下次见咯。Hello everyone, I'm Jenny. Welcome to Thinker J. Have you ever picked up a book and simply could not put it down? A book that left you feeling like your entire worldview had been turned upside down. For me, that book was Sapiens. And the man who wrote it is Yuval Noah Harari, an Israeli historian who picked up a pen and convinced tens of millions of people around the world to take a long, hard look at themselves. Today we are going to talk about this fascinating thinker. Who is he really? How does he see artificial intelligence in our future? And why do so many people feel a chill running down their spine when they hear what he has to say? Yuval Noah Harari was born in 1976 in Haifa, Israel. From a young age, he was the kind of child who could not stop asking questions. Not the type who memorized textbooks. Rather the type who kept pushing further, always asking why. Why do humans have nations? Why do we have religion? Why do we care so much about money? These are questions adults usually cannot answer well. So Harari decided to go find the answers himself. He studied history at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He excelled there and later headed to Oxford University in England to pursue his doctorate. His specialty was medieval military history. That is right. He did not start out studying artificial intelligence or futurism. He began with something as concrete and specific as medieval warfare. Swords, armor, battle formations. But his mind could never stay confined to something so narrow. He always pushed history in a bigger, more sweeping direction. In 2002 he returned to Israel and has been teaching at the Hebrew University ever since. His classes became legendary among students. His teaching style was vivid and full of storytelling. Students later said that sitting in his lectures felt like watching an intellectual documentary. Once you started, you could not stop. The moment that launched him into the global spotlight came in 2011. He published a book in Hebrew called A Brief History of Humankind. The English translation was Led Sapiens. The word sapiens refers to our species, Homo sapiens, or wise humans. The book exploded across the global intellectual world the moment it appeared. The President of Israel recommended it. Barack Obama named it among his favorite books. Bill Gates read it multiple times. Mark Zuckerberg added it to his annual reading list. Global sales surpassed 25 million copies. The book was translated into more than 60 languages. An academic historian had transformed himself into one of the most recognized public thinkers on the planet. So what exactly is this book about? What made it so irresistible to so many brilliant and powerful people? Harari did something audacious. He told the entire 70,000-year story of humanity in a single book. He moved from the cognitive revolution to the agricultural revolution. From the scientific revolution to the digital age we live in now. And he did it in a way that anyone could follow. But more importantly, he put forward a stunning central argument. Human beings came to dominate the earth not because we are the strongest creatures. Not because we are the smartest in every measurable way. But because we are capable of believing in fictional stories. That sounds strange at first, does it not? But think about it for a moment. Would a chimpanzee risk its life for a piece of paper? Absolutely not. But humans will. We call that piece of paper money. Would a chimpanzee sacrifice itself for an invisible, intangible concept? Of course not. But humans do it all the time. We call those concepts nations, religions, or corporations. Harari argues that these are all shared fictional stories that human beings collectively believe in. And it is precisely this capacity that allows us to form enormous societies. To coordinate and cooperate across millions of people who have never met each other. No other animal on Earth can do this. And this remarkable ability is the secret behind human success. But he also raises the uncomfortable question on the other side. If all of these things are stories, what is actually real? Is money real? Is a nation real? Are human rights real? Once you start asking these questions, it is very hard to stop. And the deeper you go, the more unsettling it gets. This is exactly what makes Harari so compelling. He does not hand you easy answers. He pushes you to think for yourself. After Sapiens, Harari continued writing. His second book was Led Homo Deus, meaning godlike humans. This time he made a leap from history into the future. He asked a provocative question. After humans managed to conquer plague, war, and famine, what would come next? His answer left many readers uneasy. He argued that humanity's next great ambitions are immortality, perpetual happiness, and something approaching divinity. In that book he warned that future human beings might no longer be equal to one another in the ways we currently assume. Because the wealthy will be able to use technology to upgrade their bodies and their minds. While those without the resources will be left behind. The inequality that results will not simply be a gap in wealth. It will be a gap in fundamental capability. A biological and cognitive gap between different categories of people. This might sound like science fiction. But brain-computer interfaces are already being tested today. Gene editing is advancing rapidly. The future is not as far away as we might like to think. His third book was Led 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. This one was more immediate and direct. He set aside both the distant past and the far future. He focused entirely on the present moment. The burning questions we are living with right now. What do we do as artificial intelligence advances? Can we still trust democratic institutions? When misinformation spreads faster than truth, how do we even begin to think clearly? None of these questions have tidy answers. But Harari forces you to confront them honestly. Now let us talk seriously about Harari and artificial intelligence. Because this has become the central concern of his thinking in recent years. And it is also the topic that has generated the most debate around his ideas. After 2023, the pace of AI development left the entire world stunned. Once tools like ChatGPT appeared, almost everyone was asking the same question. Is this thing going to take my job? And Harari's answer was more sobering than most people expected. He argues that artificial intelligence is not simply another tool in a long line of human inventions. It represents a fundamentally different kind of technology. The Industrial Revolution replaced human muscle. But artificial intelligence is replacing the human mind. Not just simple repetitive mental tasks, but judgment, creativity, and complex decision-making. This is the first time in history that human beings face something that may surpass us in certain dimensions of intelligence. He emphasizes one particular danger that he finds especially alarming. He says the greatest threat right now is not that AI becomes too intelligent. The greatest threat is that AI becomes extraordinarily skilled at manipulating human minds. Think about what that means. A system that can precisely analyze your emotions, your preferences, and your deepest fears. Such a system could craft exactly the right message to make you nod and agree. To make you believe things you would not have believed on your own. To make you take actions you had no intention of taking. This is not the plot of a distant science fiction story. It is already happening around us. Harari argues that democracy rests on a fundamental assumption. That citizens are capable of making rational, autonomous choices. But if AI can precisely manipulate the choices of every single citizen, democracy loses its very foundation. He calls this one of the greatest political threats of the 21st century. Not war, not economic collapse. But the erosion of human capacity for independent thought. In 2024 he published a new book titled Nexus. In this book he devoted substantial attention to the relationship between information networks and power throughout history. He argues that every major social transformation in human history has been connected to a change in how information flows. The invention of the printing press made the Reformation possible. The rise of radio and television reshaped the nature of politics. And now artificial intelligence is changing the speed and nature of information flow faster than any previous technology. Do we have enough time and wisdom to respond adequately? He expressed profound concern on this question. In Nexus he also draws a distinction that he finds important. He observes that human information networks have always made mistakes. Because humans make mistakes. But those errors can be corrected over time. Because the members of human networks have the capacity for self-reflection and moral reasoning. AI-driven information networks are different. They may be highly efficient and extraordinarily accurate. But they lack an internal ethical mechanism for self-correction. They optimize for the objectives they were trained to pursue. Not for authentic human well-being. This distinction might seem subtle. But over time it could produce enormous consequences. Let us now talk about how Harari thinks about free will. This is a question he has been exploring since his very first book. And with each new work, he goes deeper. And the deeper he goes, the more uncomfortable the conclusions become. His position is unambiguous. He does not believe that human beings possess free will. That sounds like a provocative claim. But once you hear his reasoning, it starts to make a certain uncomfortable kind of sense. He argues that when you make a decision, you feel as though you are choosing freely. But what is actually happening is that neurons in your brain are firing in particular patterns. The state of those neurons is shaped by your genes, your upbringing, and every experience you have ever had. And you did not choose any of those things. So what feels like free choice is actually the output of a long causal chain. You experience yourself as choosing. But the choosing was already determined before you were aware of it. What troubles him even more deeply is this. If artificial intelligence can map a person's neural activity with enough precision, it could predict your next decision before you yourself are even conscious of making it. It could intervene to shape the direction of that decision before it fully forms. At that point, who is actually deciding? Is it you? Or is it the system? This question does not have a comfortable answer. Some critics have pushed back against Harari, saying he is too pessimistic. They argue that his warnings are designed to frighten rather than to genuinely analyze. That critique is not entirely without merit. Harari is undeniably skilled at using dramatic language to frame his ideas. That is part of what makes his books so compelling to read. But it can also leave readers feeling more anxious than enlightened. Harari has responded to this criticism directly. He says he is not making predictions. He is asking questions. He argues that a good historian's job is not to tell you what the future will look like. It is to help you see clearly which possible futures your present choices might lead toward. And the choices we make right now will profoundly shape the direction that AI development takes. If we do not think carefully now, we may not get another chance. Beyond his intellectual work, there are aspects of Harari's personal life that many people find equally fascinating. He is openly gay and has been with his husband Itzik Yahav for many years. Yahav is also his professional partner. They collaborate on interview schedules and publishing decisions together. Harari has maintained a long-term practice of Vipassana meditation. This is a form of mindfulness meditation rooted in the Theravada Buddhist tradition. Every year he spends as long as 60 days in complete silence, devoted entirely to this practice. For a globally prominent public intellectual, this is extraordinarily rare. But Harari says this practice is absolutely essential to his thinking and writing. It allows him to withdraw from the noise of the outside world, and to directly observe how his own mind actually works. He has said that his skepticism about free will owes something to this practice. When you sit quietly and observe your own thoughts with full attention, you notice that thoughts seem to arise on their own. You cannot command yourself to think a particular thought. A thought appears, and you simply observe that it has appeared. This experience gave him a fundamentally different understanding of what the self actually is. Harari is also a committed vegetarian and cares deeply about animal welfare. In Sapiens he included a section on industrial farming that many readers described as deeply affecting. Several people said they found it very difficult to eat meat with the same ease afterward. He believes that the way human civilization treats animals represents one of the largest and most widely ignored moral failures in our history. Today Harari continues to write and speak around the world. He addresses universities, corporations, and government bodies. He holds conversations with national leaders and debates the founders of technology companies. He has said that among the things that concern him most is the fact that the people currently shaping the direction of AI development are primarily motivated by commercial interests, not by the well-being of humanity as a whole. And governments are moving far too slowly to regulate what is happening. He sees this gap as genuinely dangerous. He advocates for global cooperation on AI governance. He argues that artificial intelligence resembles nuclear weapons in one crucial sense. It is not a problem that any single nation can solve alone. It requires coordinated international effort and shared commitments. But the competitive logic driving relations between major powers makes that kind of cooperation extremely difficult to achieve. This remains one of his deepest sources of worry. Before we close today, I want to share one idea from Harari that has stayed with me. He says that in this age of information overload, the most important skill is not the ability to acquire more information. It is the ability to deliberately ignore information. Knowing what is not important is what frees your attention for what truly matters. In the era of social media, that observation hits especially close to home. Every day there are so many news alerts, so many notifications, so many things the algorithm is pushing in front of you. Do you ever stop and ask yourself honestly, does this actually matter to me? Or am I just watching it because it was placed in my path? This is precisely what I love most about Harari as a thinker. He never gives you the easy answer. He gives you harder questions. But it is exactly those harder questions that give us the chance to live just a little more consciously. From a curious child growing up in Haifa, to a scholar of medieval military history at Oxford, to the writer whose work reshaped the worldview of 25 million readers, to one of the most prominent voices of warning at the frontier of the AI age. Yuval Noah Harari's story teaches us something essential. The most important capacity is not knowing the answers. It is keeping your curiosity alive, and always having the courage to ask the questions that make people uncomfortable. Thank you so much for joining me today to discover this remarkable thinker. If you enjoyed today's episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel. See you next time.